The first thing I did after being reborn was cutting myself like crazy, and then poured 2 pounds of salt on the wounds to disinfect them. I even mixed a pound of chili powder into the salt. It's all because in my past life, my boss bound me to a 10x rebate system. I worked my ass off. He got 10 times the bonus. I busted my butt working out. He got 10 times the health benefits. I lived like a freaking ascetic. He partied every single night, yet his body got healthier and healthier. And my girlfriend was his most capable accomplice. She forced me to quit smoking and drinking and give up all bad habits just to make my life force purer so he could drain it more smoothly. After rebirth, to make my boss feel 10 times the pain. That's how the scene at the beginning happened. The next day, I arrived at the company extra early on purpose, waiting for Si Zhuanghuo to show up. It was 8:50. There he came, but there was not a single sign of injury on him. None of his movements looked unnatural at all. When his gaze swept over to my side, he even gave me a concerned smile. My heart sank into a bottomless abyss at that moment. Hurting myself actually didn't work. Does his system only rebate good things and not bad things? That can't be right. Otherwise, why would Liu Ruyan force me to quit bad habits? Just when I was about to be swallowed up by despair, a familiar figure appeared in front of me. Gucheng, what's wrong with you? You look so weak. Is work pressure too much for you? Don't push yourself too hard. Why don't we take time off this weekend and stay at a hot spring hotel in the suburbs for 2 days to relax properly? Or I can go with you to the gym tonight, work up a good sweat, and get all the negative energy out. Looking at her sweet, smiling face, the anger in my heart, the grievance and despair, all merged into a stream of magma in an instant and erupted violently all at once. Stress, anxiety. Aren't they all given to me by you two cheating scumbags? I walked out of the office without saying a word. I came back a few minutes later with an extra thing in my hand, a brand new pack of cigarettes, right in front of her, and in front of all co-workers in the office who were pretending to work, but were actually listening to gossip with their ears perked up. I lit it. But Liu Ruyan's reaction was 100 times more intense than I expected. Her face changed instantly. She lunged right in front of me, snatching the cigarette out of my mouth, and slammed it onto the ground hard. Then she used her pointy, high heels to stomp on it hysterically. Goosing, are you crazy? Didn't you promise me you already quit smoking? Why are you smoking again? Do you have any idea how bad this is for your health? This reaction was so weird. Before, no matter how much I resisted, working out and other self-discipline routines, she would always guide me with a soft and persuasive tone. But when it came to smoking, her reaction was actually this intense, this out of character. Like what I was smoking wasn't a cigarette, but his life. I looked at her body trembling slightly from agitation, looked at her eyes full of panic and fluster. A crazy, bold, earth-shattering thought, like a bolt of lightning cutting through the dark, lit up my muddled mind in an instant. I get it. I get everything now. Everyone in the office was confused by my sudden burst of laughter. Gucheng, please don't be like this. You're scaring me. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have yelled at you. I really am just looking out for you. Looking out for me? You're looking out for Si Zhuanghuo, right? These words were like a bomb that exploded right next to Liu Ruyan's ear. What the hell are you talking about? I don't understand. You don't understand. Go back and tell your lover Si Zhuanghuo. His good days are over. The next day, I ran into Si Zhuanghuo in the company elevator by chance. He always looked energetic and lively before, but today his under eyes were slightly dark. There were only the two of us in the elevator. I could clearly hear he would make 1 or 2 suppressed soft coughs every now and then, and there was a sound in his throat like the vague phlegm-clearing sound that only heavy smokers make when they just wake up in the morning. Seeing him like this, that spark of insight in my heart that cut through the dark was completely lit up. Oh, that's how it is. Oh, that's exactly how it is. This damn rebate system, it doesn't work based on whether I did something good or bad at all. What it responds to is my true inner feeling when I'm doing that thing. I was in pain when I hurt myself, so the system still works perfectly and isn't affected at all. So the negative physical effects of this pleasure are coughing, throat discomfort, and lung damage. No wonder in the whole year I dated Liu Ruyan, she never let me get physical with her. Turns out she wasn't being reserved. She was just scared of me feeling good. She was afraid once I felt good, Si Zhuanghuo would be totally done for too. No wonder she strictly forbade me from all so-called bad habits, like staying up gaming, drinking, eating skewers, and even stopped me from getting off. Thinking of this, I almost burst out laughing.
Si Zhuanghuo Liu Ruyan,
You've tried everything to suppress my nature and kill off my desires, just so you can leech off me without a single worry. Well, now, the rules of the game are gonna change, since you're so scared of me feeling good. I'm gonna make sure I feel extra good on purpose. Now that I found the real way to use the system, I feel like the whole world has become colorful. Si Zhuanghuo's condition got worse at a speed visible to the naked eye. He started coughing frequently and violently, especially during meetings. Often he couldn't finish a single sentence before coughing until his face turned bright red. Even the big boss gave him dissatisfied looks, but he was really good at enduring. He knew full well there were less than 3 months left until the final harvest day. As long as he can get through this period, he can take the huge fortune I worked hard to save this year and his healthy body and run away to enjoy his life. But I also realized that just doing that to completely take him down in less than 3 months still seemed like it wouldn't be enough. That night, I lay in bed tossing and turning. I started counting up what other things could make me feel truly good from the heart, but also have obvious negative effects on my body. Suddenly, an idea I had suppressed for a long time, that I was even too embarrassed to mention, like a naughty shooting star, flashed across my mind, then quickly became clear and bright. Oh right, that thing. I'm a 26-year-old, hot-blooded, single man with completely normal physical functions. Before rebirth, Liu Ruyan controlled me super strictly, let alone having sex. I even had to wait for her good mood to kiss her. She called it being responsible for our future, saying we shouldn't indulge in short-term pleasure. Looking back now, she was just scared of me feeling good. I'm reborn now, and I broke up with her. I'm a proud single guy again, so isn't taking care of that myself. The most normal thing ever. I gave this plan a loud and hopeful name called the Get Off Plan. Just 3 days later, Si Zhuanghuo's whole look deteriorated at an alarmingly fast speed. He needed to hold the wall to walk, as if a gust of wind could blow him over. During meetings, the laser pointer in his hand shook like he had late-stage Parkinson's. He couldn't even point at the words on the PPT correctly. Several times when he was talking, his eyes would suddenly glaze over and start zoning out. The whole department noticed something was wrong with him and were gossiping privately. What's wrong with Director C? He looks like his yang energy has been sucked dry. Oh, he's a young guy. High energy. That's understandable. Totally understandable. That afternoon, he finally couldn't hold on anymore. He called me into his office. Guchen, I know I wronged you. After you broke up with Liu Ruyan, I stole her from you. It's my fault. I'm an asshole. I apologize to you. He actually took the initiative to bow and apologize to me. I sneered in my heart. It seems he was really almost beaten to death by my twice-a-day get-off combo attacks. But how could I possibly let him off? I still have way more plans to carry out. What's wrong, Director C? Guchen, I think you're a very talented person. You shouldn't just be down and out like this. Look, this is the new media promotion project in south of the city. It has really great prospects. There's tons of money to be made here. All the tough grunt work in the early stages. Zhang Qiang from the planning department and his crew have already gotten most of it done. The only thing left is the final integration and launch. You just need to swoop in and take the credit. I've already talked to the higher-ups about this. This project is handed over to you to take full charge of the final wrap-up. The bonus will definitely be super generous. Another one of these free money gigs, huh? He thinks he can buy me off with money. Make me stop this suicidal attack? Ridiculous. Supervisor C, I quit. I want to resign. No way. He almost yelled those words out. Then he realized he'd lost his composure. He quickly softened his tone. He was practically begging me. Guchen, listen to me. The company needs you. I need you too. You can't leave. Absolutely not. He knew even if I left, as long as the system was still bound to me, he could still do all kinds of under-the-table deals to force money and credits onto me, and still get 10 times the rebate anyway. But if that happened, I'd be completely out of his sight and control. He was scared that after I left, I'd do even more crazy unhinged, pleasant things that he couldn't bear. Guchen, I'm begging you as your brother, okay? As long as you stay in the company, I'll give you whatever you want. Raises and promotions are all no problem. Just stop torturing yourself like that, okay? I looked at his nearly broken expression, and I was absolutely thrilled inside. Torturing myself. Buddy, you probably have no idea. I'm actually living my best life right now. After that day, I started indulging myself even more recklessly. At night, I was no longer satisfied with just small fun. Instead, I'd invite a few of my buddies to drink at bars, go sing at KTVs, and not go home until dawn. During the day, I'd catch up on sleep at the office. When I woke up, I'd go to the smoking area for a cigarette to refresh myself. I'd also drop by the company's fancy bathroom to complete my daily fun KPI. Si Zhuanghuo's health was declining at a terrifyingly fast speed. I heard he'd started having symptoms of auditory and visual hallucinations. Several times he suddenly stood up during meetings, yelling at empty corners, saying a ghost was chasing him. Liu Ruyan also came to see me a few times. She was no longer that lofty, untouchable goddess. Instead, she was crying her eyes out. Looking completely worn out, she begged me to let Si Zhuanghuo off. I looked at her hypocritical face and only felt ridiculous and disgusted. If you'd known this would happen, you shouldn't have done what you did before. You want to turn back now? It's too late. I still have a big gift for you guys, just wait. My grandpa was a genuine old farmer, but he didn't smoke those fancy, flashy cigarettes sold on the market. He only smoked the tobacco he planted himself in the fields, then dried and cured with his own hands. I always wondered what it tasted like when I was little, and wanted to sneak a taste. But Grandpa caught me every time. You're just a kid. Why are you touching this? It'll choke you to death. When I grew up later, I left my hometown, went to the city to study and work. Then Grandpa passed away, so I never got the chance to get my hands on that kind of old-school stuff with that raw, wild vibe ever again. Now I think it's the right time. I went through a lot of trouble to get a big bag of top-quality, aged tobacco that's said to have been cellared for 3 years. The tobacco leaves were a deep, glossy, dark brown. Then, I copied how I remembered Grandpa did it, tore the glossy leaves apart one by one, and spread them evenly on a big, thick piece of straw paper. Then I carefully started from one end, rolling it up tightly. My goal was to create a one-of-a-kind work of art, a super weapon worthy of going down in history. Finally, after more than an hour of careful crafting and repeated adjustments, an unprecedented super cigar was born in my hands. It was as long as my forearm, as thick as my thermos cup. Instead of calling it a cigarette, it's more like a brown magic wand, or to use a more accurate, vivid term, a nuclear weapon. I could already see that when Si Zhuanghuo, under the system's effect, inhales this 10 times dose nuke, what kind of brilliant yet twisted chrysanthemum would bloom on his handsome face. I could already hear the wonderful howl he'd make when his soul leaves his body and he ascends to heaven. This day, the company held the work summary meeting for the first 3 quarters. This is the most important meeting of the whole year. All the top leadership, including the group chairman who spends most of his time on out-of-town inspections, were all present at the meeting, and Si Zhuanghu, as the top performer with the best results this year, and the most favored star supervisor, was arranged to give the first report on stage. When I arrived at the venue, he was already in a suit standing next to the podium getting ready. He was wearing an expensive, well-fitted, custom-made suit. His hair was gelled into a sleek, shiny style. He tried to use these external things to cover up his extremely haggard face, but all of that was in vain. His sunken eye sockets, pale, puffy face, and his 2 legs that were shaking slightly uncontrollably as he stood, all seemed to be silently complaining about his happy life these days. The chairman, sitting in the center of the first row, was already frowning slightly, obviously quite dissatisfied with the current state of his once prized right-hand man. I quietly placed my phone against the water glass in front of me. I adjusted the camera angle so it was pointed directly at the podium. Then I quietly pressed the record button. When Si Zhuanghu started his speech, I slipped out of the venue without a sound and headed straight for the smoking room on the top floor. Then I solemnly took out my carefully crafted nuclear weapon that carried all my hatred. In that instant, I felt like the top of my skull was about to be blown right off by an oncoming cannon shell. My brain went completely blank in a second. I saw stars before my eyes. The world was spinning around me. My ears were ringing. My legs gave out, and I collapsed straight to the ground. I rested for a full minute. I knew I couldn't take any more, so I put it out right away and stuffed it back in my shirt. Then I held onto the wall, stumbled groggily back towards the meeting venue. Just as I got to the venue entrance, I was shocked by what I saw inside. The venue was already total chaos. Screams from female colleagues, shouts of surprise from male colleagues, and the urgent walkie-talkie chatter of security guards all mixed together. I saw several people gathered around the podium. The chairman's face was as dark as a burnt pot bottom, yelling something angrily at his secretary. I went back to my seat, picked up my phone calmly, and stopped the recording. I opened the video I just recorded. The footage almost made me snort with laughter on the spot. At the start of the video, Si Zhuanghu was standing on the stage, smugly bragging about his great achievements this year. Suddenly, right when I took the first puff of my nuclear cigarette, his body went completely stiff. His eyes popped wide open. The whites of his eyes were full of bloodshot streaks, as if he had seen something absolutely terrifying. Then he started twitching violently, like a live fish thrown onto a hot iron plate. His mouth was wide open, weird gurgling sounds coming from his throat, but he couldn't make any complete sounds. The next second, right when I took the second puff, a huge stream of white foam started pouring violently out of the corner of his mouth. His whole body was like a chopped-down wooden post, falling straight backward. With a loud thud, he hit the ground hard. His limbs were still twitching rhythmically out of control, like a player on a dance machine who's lost control. That scene was better than any B-grade horror film I've ever seen. Way more fascinating, way more thrilling, and way more satisfying. Si Zhuanghu was taken away by ambulance that same day and sent straight to the intensive care unit. The hospital organized a specialist consultation overnight, and the final conclusion was that long-term heavy smoking, drinking, staying up late, excessive sex, and other bad lifestyle habits caused systemic multi-organ dysfunction, which triggered acute seizure-like episodes and nervous system disorders. The doctor repeatedly told the family that the patient's condition was very critical. He needed complete rest and must not be stimulated even the slightest bit. Otherwise, he could die of sudden cardiac arrest at any time. The next day, I was whistling as I slowly made my way to the ICU visiting area of the hospital. Through the thick glass, I saw on the hospital bed Si Zhuanghu and Liu Ruyan, who was guarding him beside the bed. Liu Ruyan's eyes were red and swollen from crying, like 2 walnuts. When she saw me, her eyes were filled with bone-deep fear and hatred. Si Zhuanghu on the bed was wearing an oxygen mask, hooked up to all kinds of medical devices, like a zombie that got buried way ahead of time. I wore a big, bright smile facing the glass window. I thought to myself, such a great thing can't go to waste. I asked a couple of friends out tonight. We're gonna drink and sing all night at KTV. This is perfect to bring along. On the other side of the glass, Si Zhuanghuo's eyes popped wide open like 2 brass bells. For the first time on his ashen pale face, intense emotional fluctuations appeared. It was extreme, pure terror. The readings on the ventilator started jumping wildly and let out a shrill alarm. He ripped off the oxygen mask on his face, using every last bit of his strength. He struggled to sit up. No, Guteng, I'm begging you. Please just go get some rest. Don't go out to have fun. I looked at his half-dead appearance. The smile on my lips turned even colder. Si Zhuanghuo, I know about that damn system of yours. It can return 10 times of everything I gain to you. Isn't that right? His expression went from shocked to horrified, then to complete despair in the end, and finally turned completely ashen. Ugh, I'm wrong, Gucheng. I'm so wrong. I'll give you all the money I got from the system rebates. I'll split half with you, no. I'll give you all of it. I'm begging you, please just let me go. I laughed. It was extremely sarcastic, extremely unbridled and arrogant. Money? What about my life? What are you going to use to pay me back for that? He couldn't say a single word at all. His whole body was shaking like chaff in a sieve. Take it easy, my dear big brother. We can take our time playing I want to see for myself. In these last 90 days, whether you die of joy from my teasing first, or I play myself to death first. After saying that, I stopped looking at his face twisted. By extreme fear, I turned around and left without looking back. Behind me was the deafening shrill alarm in the ICU, Liu Ruyan's heart-wrenching screams, and the shattering sound of equipment being knocked to the ground. The moment I just walked out of the hospital gate, a cold voice suddenly rang out in my head, without any human emotion at all, a pure mechanical voice. Warning, host vital signs detected. To be under severe and irreversible threat. System core security. Authority agreement has been triggered. Initiating mandatory unbinding procedure. Unbinding progress. 10%, 30%, 100%. Mandatory unbinding procedure completed. Binding terminated. As soon as the voice faded, I felt an indescribably warm, vitality-filled warm current start, surging from my limbs and bones instantly, then quickly spreading all over my body. It was a long-lost sense of power that belonged completely to me, as if all the life force that had been drained by the system. At this moment, with interest, all returned to my body. I let out a long sigh of relief, feeling more relaxed than I've ever been. A week later, I got the news. Si Zhuanghuo was discharged from the hospital and went back to the company alive and kicking. I snuck near the company to take a look at him. He was fully recovered, driving his flashy Porsche, Like the guy who was dying in the ICU before. Wasn't him at all. I felt quite helpless in my heart. Now that he's alive again, it's time for me to face the reckoning. That same afternoon, I got a call from the HR department. The manager called me personally to inform me that I was fired. The reason was long-term unexcused absences, extremely poor work attitude, serious violation of company rules, and caused negative impact to the company. I didn't argue about it, nor did I make a fuss. I accepted the result very calmly. I packed up my measly little personal belongings and left this place that gave me a new life, and also almost got me killed again. I went to a warm, small coastal town in the south. Got a laid-back programmer job that doesn't require overtime, rented an apartment with a sea view, and started a brand new life that truly belongs to me. One ordinary afternoon about 3 months later, I got an unexpected phone call. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar number. The registered location was the city I used to live in. I hesitated for a second and still picked up the call. Hello, is this Gu Chung? Yeah, it's me. Gu Chung, please. Can you please lend me some money? 500,000 won? No, 300,000 is fine too. I'm begging you. You're the only one who can help me. Go ask your old buddy, Si Zhuanghuo. Isn't he a talented young guy? And business elite. But the second I mentioned the name Si Zhuanghuo, Liu Ruyan on the other end of the line turned into a lit powder keg right away and blew up immediately. That goddamn bastard Si Zhuanghuo. He deserves to die a horrible death. She was screaming at the top of her lungs, completely hysterical, like Si Zhuanghuo was her sworn enemy who killed her dad. I was totally caught off guard by her sudden outburst of curses. I didn't bother sticking around to listen more, and just hung up the phone and blocked her number. But then, a few days later, I got a call from a former colleague who still worked at the old company and was on good terms with me. And that's when I finally heard the whole story of what went down. Turns out the second the system force unbound from me, a long overdue but perfectly fair judgment fell on Si Zhuanghuo. That so-called advanced intelligent reverse force system follows a weird yet absolutely fair law of energy conservation. All the gifts it gave Si Zhuanghuo had already been secretly priced long ago. The cost of forced unbinding is that all the positive gains obtained through improper and predatory means have to be paid back 10 times in a far more cruel way. All the bonuses, salaries, and dividends I earned from projects over the past year added up to around 1 million. The system rebated him over 10 million in cash, but the moment we unbound, that over 10 million cash instantly turned into an out-of-nowhere debt of over 100 million. And this debt wasn't regular bank loans. It was split between dozens of different compound interest, deadly underground loan shark companies. Even worse, the vitality I worked so hard to build up over the past year, all of that energy he siphoned off so he could recklessly waste his health, also came back to bite him in an overdrawn form after the unbinding. That's why he seemed to have recovered after being discharged from the hospital. That was just the last surge of bodily function before death after the system unbound. In reality, his body was already completely drained. Right after I left the company, Si Zhuanghuo and Liu Ruyan got married super fast. As his legal wife, Liu Ruyan, this astronomically huge debt naturally became their joint marital debt. When Liu Ruyan found out the truth, she broke down right on the spot. She screamed and cried, wanting to divorce Si Zhuanghuo. Si Zhuanghuo wanted someone to split the debt with, so he refused to agree no matter what. The people from those loan shark companies sent people to the office almost every day to visit Si Zhuanghuo and Liu Ruyan. They didn't hit anyone or yell at anyone. They just dragged a small stool and sat right outside Si Zhuanghuo's office door, or next to Liu Ruyan's desk, staring at them working with blank faces. They followed them to the cafeteria when they went to eat, waited outside the bathroom when they went to the toilet. That kind of invisible pressure is enough to drive anyone crazy. Eventually, the company cited severe disruption of normal work order and corporate image as the reason, and fired both of them. My former colleague said he will never forget the scene that afternoon. Si Zhuanghuo was grabbed by a few vicious thugs, dragged like a dead dog out of his luxurious office. He struggled like crazy and screamed at the top of his lungs into the air. I don't want to unbind anymore. I don't want to unbind. I was wrong. Please rebind me. Bind me, I'm begging you. Later, I heard the couple was forcefully taken out of the city by those loan shark people. Some people say they were sold to a fraud park in northern Myanmar to use their smart brains and pretty faces to create value and pay off that endless debt. No one ever heard from them again after that. Bad people always get what they deserve. I started writing the first line of code for my new project. This time, all the hard work, all the sweat, all the wisdom and creativity will belong entirely to me. My life is in my own hands.